Hey guys, welcome to a new vlog. So this is the first vlog of 2023. I was about to say 2022. It's not. So happy New Year, guys. I have not talked to y'all since last year. Dad joke. Will this work? I think this will work. Oh my gosh, a lot has happened. Oh, excuse my laundry. It's clean laundry, but I was folding laundry. So the last I saw you guys in my previous vlog, it was the day before our Florida trip. So what happened with that was, so the next day, it was Friday, December 23rd. Yeah, it was the day before Christmas Eve. I'm like, I don't think we were flying Christmas Eve. So it was the day before Christmas Eve. The weather in PA was so wacky at that time. It was like 7 degrees and like ice storms. So my anxiety was really bad about flying. Like normally I don't get flying anxiety. I used to before I ever took my first flight. I was terrified of flying. Most of that was based around emetophobia. Like, oh, I'm afraid to go on a plane and get sick. I'm not afraid of passing away. I am afraid of getting sick. So anyway, weird side note there. So I was a little uneasy about flying. I was like, the weather's really bad. They haven't delayed our flight yet. I kept watching the flight status to see if it was getting delayed, and I was like just nervous about it. Like there was a sheet of ice on our sidewalk, and I remember hearing years ago, I heard like this fact that like most plane crashes occur like December and January just because of the cold, and I'm just like so I was just like low-key freaking out. And then Brandon informs me that his dad had COVID in Florida, and we were gonna be having dinner with him like the following day. Obviously we weren't going to now, but like it just sent my anxiety into a spiral because, with me, like finding out somebody has COVID, while you might be like, oh, like I'm safe, I haven't seen them, I'm not going to see them, like most people would view it that way. For me, it's like, I was this close to going and having dinner with this guy. Like, I'm so scared. You know what I mean? That's where my brain goes. My brain is like, look how close I was to this scary situation, and it just scares me. So I started having like a full-on anxiety attack. Like, I'm trying to get ready for the airport, and I'm like, just like low-key freaking out. And my anxiety was just so bad, and I'm like, Brandon, maybe you should just go without me. Like, and he was getting ready to go, and I'm like, trying to calm down. I was like dissociating on the couch, just like crying and like trying to catch my breath. But then it was like 10 minutes before he had to leave, and I'm like, I'm gonna regret it if I don't go, right? Like, I'm going to regret this, so I need to go. And like something just snapped in me, and like something I tell myself, and I've been telling myself for like the last year: do it scared, do it sad, do it sick, like just do it. Like do it scared. And that's what I was telling myself. And it's like, I don't have to not be scared to go, right? And I feel like that's kind of a good way to look at stuff, is like, I don't have to be not scared to do this. If we wait till we're not scared to do something, we're probably never going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it scared. And so I said to him, like, you know what? I'm going to go. I like pulled myself together. I fixed my freaking mascara that was running down my face. I'm like, I'm going to go. I'm gonna do it. And he was so happy that he like actually started crying. He's like, I didn't think you were gonna go. And like, I was just like, okay. Which I hate that whole like dramatic thing. Like, I'm not going, now I'm going. Like, I hate that. It's so much. Like, and I never do that. I get anxious about going to Florida sometimes. Like, sometimes it's just a lot. And really since COVID and everything, it's been a lot for me to go. But I don't like that whole like, I'm going, now I'm not going. And like, I don't like to do that. So, then we're driving to the airport, and Brandon had to pull over twice because they were salting the highway, that like he couldn't even see through the windshield, right? Kind of scary. And the sun was like shining a glare, like you couldn't see through the salt. I was gonna say sleet. It wasn't sleet. You couldn't even see through the salt on the windshield. So he had to pull over twice to like wipe his window off. So then we get to the airport, and we pull up to the parking garage because we drove there, so we had to park in the garage. I prefer having our car, and so does Brandon, because then when you come back and you land, like, you don't have to wait for anyone. Your car is just there, and it's easier in that way. You can just leave. So we get to the parking garage we need to go to for our terminal, right? And that parking garage is broken. The arm of the thing won't lift up. The monitor actually looked like a Windows computer. Like, it was completely glitched. Like, you could see the cursor moving around like someone was trying to fix it. It just wasn't working. And we sat there for a while and like nothing was happening. And we're like, okay, we don't really have time for this. Like, why are we just going to sit here? So we back up and he's like, I'll just go over to the next parking garage, which was like right next door. And he's like, we can just walk to our terminal. So I was like, okay, cool. So we go and we park there and we get inside the airport. There was like nobody there. It was like dead, which was a relief. So I was like, okay, that's like half of my issue. A lot of the time it's just like feeling really boxed in and like there's too many people. So it was kind of nice that there was like no one there. And we, I'm like, so do we go to like to the other terminal? He's like, oh, we can go like after security. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, once we're through security, like once you go through security at the airport, like you're stuck. You go through security, that's it. Like there's the gates, there's the planes, like you can't go to another terminal. And I think Brandon got the terminals and the gates confused like in his mind. So we go through security, we do all that, which was like, long process, like, because we also had our luggage with us. We were doing carry-ons. So when you have more stuff with you, security is like such a pain in the neck. So by the time I got through security, I was like, okay, so where do we go now? Like, part of me knowing, like, we're stuck here, Brandon, tell me what to do now. And he was like, oh, shit, look, I think you were right. I think now we're stuck here. We can't go to the other terminal. And I was like, I low-key knew, but I was just letting him take the lead. I was just following, but like, I did say something, but I mean, when you're walking through the airport and you see a security line, it's just like, oh, yep, that's where I go. Not even thinking like we're not at the right terminal. So then we had to exit the security. So it was basically, we just backtracked to the front of the airport. We had to walk outside the airport and walk to our terminal. And it was so freaking cold. Like, when I tell you, not even exaggerating, it was like 7 degrees, I think, which is insane, especially with this week. It has been like 50 something degrees here in PA. So that little fluke of like it being 7 damn degrees. And I didn't take a big coat with me because I'm like, I'm going to Florida. So we were running outside because it was freezing. Not because we were on like a time crunch or anything, but like it was cold. So we're like, get us out of the cold. Let's get to our terminal. So we're running outside for like a good, I want to say 5 solid minutes. We like ran up the sidewalk, past all these cars, dropping people off, and we had to go to the next terminal. So then when we finally get inside, as soon as like the hot air hits my face inside the building, I like realized like I cannot catch my breath. I mean, like, I'm definitely out of shape, but I'm not one of those people that's like, I've never been that way where it's like I'm just gonna stand here like wheezing while like after a workout. But I had the flu about a month ago, and really since then my pulse has been acting up again. And I've had this issue for like a couple years now. I mean, I've had like circulation issues most of my life, like my whole entire life. Like, my siblings would like tease me about my hands being ice cold, and they would call me Frozone from The Incredibles because like my hands and my feet are like always freezing. They're always red. I've always just had really poor circulation. So I felt like I was gonna pass out in the airport. I was just like, oh my freaking, like, I was afraid of this. Like, I was afraid of this a few weeks ago after I had gotten sick and, like, I was dizzy taking a shower. Like, I said to Brandon, like, I'm scared to go to the airport because I'm scared of fainting. But it really wasn't even on my mind the day of. Like, I don't want people to think, like, I psyched myself into it. Like, I was anxious about the weather. I was anxious that his dad had COVID. I was anxious, like, I wasn't even thinking, oh, I'm anxious that I'm going to faint. I was just going with the flow and just going with the motions of everything. I'm like, oh, I felt okay for the past few days. Like, I'll be good. But, like, my pulse would not go down. I could not catch my breath. And I was like, I have to lay down on the floor. Like, there's nothing I can do. And luckily, we had time. So I just laid down on the floor. And I felt so embarrassed. I started crying. I was like, this is so embarrassing. And I said to him, like, this was like my worst fear a few weeks ago. Cause like I had expressed to him, like, I'm afraid of going to Florida. I've been feeling really dizzy lately. Like every time I take a shower, like I feel really lightheaded after. So, you know, the thought of walking through an airport, scary. So I was so mad because it was like, if we hadn't had to park in a different parking garage, or like if my mom had dropped us off, or like something, had it been different, I would have been fine. Because like I felt fine after I'd gone through security and everything. You know, we ended up not going. And like I was so upset. And I'm like, here I am at the airport. Like I made it here. Like, you know, this is like half of the stress of it all over, you know? Like for me, like it's the packing and it's the planning and it's the getting to the airport. It's really all that's like really the stressful part. I was so angry at myself. And it's not even like he could have just pushed me in a wheelchair, because like I said, we had our luggages with us, which we normally don't even do. Like we've checked a bag for the last few years every trip we've taken. So I guess it was a good thing in hindsight that we didn't check our bags, because then we would have had to like do something to get our bags back. But I was like, I can't do it. I had like tunnel vision. Like it was hard to even like focus my eyes. Like I was like squinting, and it just sucked. And, you know, Brandon was apologizing to me. He's like, I'm sorry that I pushed you too hard. Like I shouldn't have done that. And I'm just like, I'm sorry that I ruined your Christmas. Like I was even telling him, I'm like, go without me. Like I can call my mom. She can come get me. Like, but he didn't want to do that. And I really just felt guilty about it, which I think anybody would. You know, that's your spouse's family, and, you know, now they're my family too, and I love them, and I was looking forward to spending Christmas with them. And I mainly just felt embarrassed. Just like, I don't know, I didn't want anyone to think that I was like over exaggerating my problem, or that I was just flaking. And I said to Brandon, I'm like, it's hard because before I just really had to work through like my anxiety. Like I'd had an anxiety attack that morning, and I had to push myself through that. And so that was like all I really had to push through before. But nowadays it's like, not only do I have to push through the mental, I have like a physical barrier as well. So like to have both, to have like your mental health and your physical health just like horrible at the same time, it just sucked. It just sucked. And I'm just like I was actually like cursing in the airport because I was just so mad. I'm like, this is just what I didn't want to happen. You know, like I asked him like a month ago, because I wasn't feeling well after I had the flu. I'm like, you know, would you like push me around the airport in a wheelchair if I needed you to? And he was like, no, you're not going to need that. Like, it's, you know, you're fine. And that made me feel like defeated, because I wouldn't ask something like that if I didn't feel like it was maybe a possibility of something that could happen. Or even just him saying like, yeah, I will. Like that would have just made me feel better. Like, okay, I have that as an option if I need it. Like, I hope I don't need it. I don't want to need it. It's just like, I don't know. Well, I think he realized that, you know, it's like actually, not that he didn't believe it before, but I think like seeing it like out in public in like a way that like it ruined our plans. You know, because I've had like dizziness here at the house. Like I take a shower and then I'm super dizzy, and like I just lay on the floor and I can't be on my phone. Like my phone makes me dizzy, and my watching TV makes me dizzy. So I just lay on the floor. And I think seeing it like out in public and being like something that's embarrassing and not just something that happens at home really like made it real for not even just myself, but for Brandon too. Like, oh, look, this is like a real problem. So, so Brandon got me this. It's a stool for our shower. I kind of just been like joking about it for a while, but I guess I always felt like, I don't know, like this weird like guilt that it's like, oh, like I'm not disabled. I'm not old. Like I don't need something like that. Like it would be lazy for me to have something like this. Like that's always what I felt. And that was even kind of the same with like the wheelchair thing. Like, oh, I'm not disabled, I'm not elderly, like I don't need that. Like, it would be a waste for me to use something like that. But I think a lot of times people struggle with that, like, oh, I'm not sick enough for this, you know, I'm not so bad that I need this. And you know, sometimes it's like, well, I might not be as bad as someone else in a situation. That doesn't mean I don't need something. That doesn't mean I don't need help. So we just spent Christmas here, and we really tried to make the best of it. And we spent some time with my family, and it was actually pretty nice. Like, at first we didn't really want to do anything because we were just really bummed. But, you know, I told him, I'm like, we'll only feel worse if we just don't do anything. So, and luckily his family was super understanding of it. And like, his mom was even sending like links of like health related things like for me. And I'm just like, it's just so nice to not feel like I have to explain myself or be defensive or worry that they'll hate me or that they don't believe me or something like that. Like, that was my fear, that they're just like, that they're gonna hate me for it. But yeah, I you know, really for the past couple years, it's been hard for me, like with my energy, with my circulation, with catching my breath. And you know, it comes and it goes. It's not constant, but I think it was just too much all at once, and it was just the timing of everything. Like, I had just been sick. So yeah, I think if I hadn't been sick, I probably would have been fine. But yeah, the last couple weeks have just been not very good for me mentally. Like, I just had therapy, and like, I was crying in therapy, which I never do. So, yeah, and I feel like I've been sleeping a lot more. Like, I used to have to like take melatonin or whatever to go to sleep. Like, I just struggle to go to sleep, and now I've just been like conking out like a rock. I was gonna film today. I was gonna film my what I got for Christmas video, but I realized that one of my gifts is actually over at my mom's house. I left it there New Year's, so I'll have to get that this weekend and film that next week. But I kind of just wanted this to be like a touch base kind of vlog. Yeah, I just I haven't really been myself the past few weeks. Honestly, the past like 2 weeks have felt like a month or like over a month. Like, when Brandon was like, oh, Christmas was 2 weeks ago, I'm like, are you sure that wasn't like a month and a half ago? Like, what? So everything's really just been kind of like a blur. And so far, just not really having the best New Year, but hoping that changes. So yeah, I will just see you guys again real soon. Until then, pan hugs. Love you guys. Bye.